6 compound inequalities. So guys, compound inequalities just means that you have more than one. You have two. So for example, here there's two answers. And here, those two circles represent two different answers. So that means there were two different inequalities that I solved. So here, they want us to represent what was the answer for both of these. So what I start with is I start with the numbers. So here I see a -2 and a 6 is where the circles are, right? Those are where the circles are. What I need to write down is what kind of inequality gave me that answer. So I notice that the arrow's going left, so my answer is less than. Now remember, you're answering for x. This is x. The arrow is x. So x is less than -2. Here, x is greater than. So I'm going to write x is greater than 6. Now, there's two answers. So I'm going to use a word to separate this. Or. So my answers are x is less than -2 or x is greater than 6. Now, I do notice there are two different kinds of circles. So that means these two symbols should be slightly different. This one is open, so there's no line underneath it. This one is closed, so I'm going to put a line underneath it. So my answer really is x is less than -2 or x is greater than or equal to 6. Okay, over here, I could do the same thing. I could identify the numbers, but what really is happening here, let me kind of show you a little differently. There's no arrows, so you kind of have to understand, guys, the arrows are actually going in different directions, just like the other one. But this one represents an arrow going that way, and this one represents an arrow going the other way. So the arrows don't show up because what matters is only what's in between the circles. So you're identifying the answer in between. So this is how I write this answer. X is the middle. So x is in between -2 and 6. So in this case, x is greater than -2, and it's colored in, so it's also equal to -2, but it's less than 6. X is less than 6. So this is how I write this answer. So it's kind of the opposite of this, where the answers are the numbers going this way and not in the middle. In this one, it's the answers in the middle, not the answers going that way. Another way to write this is like this. X is greater than or equal to -2, and x is less than 6. That's another way you could write that answer. All right? Okay, next, number 2. Again, we have two inequalities, so we're solving them both. Okay? So we're going to use inverse operations to solve for this one, and then we're going to use inverse inequalities to solve for this one. Starting with this, I'm going to do -2, -2. That's going to leave me with -3x and -9. Next, this -3 is multiplying, so the inverse is dividing. So I'm dividing both sides by -3. What that means is my x becomes a positive. There's no negative anymore over here. This becomes a +3 because I'm dividing negative by negative. And because I did that, the sign flips. Okay, so that's the answer here. Now for this one, I distribute. So I get 2x minus 4 is greater than or equal to 6. Now I'm going to use inverse operations. I'm going to add 4 this time, the opposite of what the number was doing. So I get 2x is greater than or equal to 10. Next, I'm going to divide by 2. So my answer turns out to be x is greater than or equal to 5. Now I'm going to put these numbers or these answers on a number line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, two circles. First one, x is less than 3. So I have an arrow starting here going to the left because it's less than. And it's an open circle because there's no line underneath it. But here, I'm going to have a closed circle. X is greater than, so it goes this way, like that. And that's my answer. That's it right there. That's the answer. You put both answers together because a compound inequality is two answers on a single number line. Okay? You can have more than one answer on here. Next. Now, this one, there's two ways to do it. You can ignore one side and solve for this, and you can ignore this side and solve for the other one. And we can go over that, but the problem with that is you would have to rewrite this. You would have to rewrite this. I'm just gonna make a little box here. If I focus on this answer, I would have to rewrite the problem like this and ignore this part and then just solve for that. But if I do it the other way, I have to ignore this part and solve for this part. Now you can do it this way. You can rewrite it as two different inequalities and solve for them separately. The inverse is subtracting 9 and then dividing by 7, and you get your answers. But what I want to do is actually solve it at the same time. This is what I mean. You have two inequality symbols, right? So instead of having two sides, you have three sides. You can still use inverse operations. So for example, if I want to get rid of this 9, inverse operations, I subtract 9. Normally I tell you whatever you do to one side, you also do to the other. But what you're going to do now, you're going to do it to all sides. So you're subtracting all sides by negative 9. You would get this, negative 21, 7x, and 7. Next, you want to get rid of that 7. Now that 7 is multiplying, so inverse is going to divide, but you don't just divide both sides, we divide all sides. So you get negative 3, you don't flip it because you didn't divide by a negative. You get just x, and you get 1. So here's your answer. Negative 3 less than x, x is less than 1. So if you solved it here, you would get two different answers. You would get an answer like this, and another answer, and an answer like this. You would get the same thing. You would get the same thing if you did it this way, okay? But now we have to graph it. Now the easiest way to graph this, guys, draw your number line. 0, 1, 2, negative 3. Put 1 right there. The number 1. Okay. Now, x is greater than negative 3 and less than 1. So, the answers are in between negative 3 and 1. So you don't have to draw arrows. Your answer is just in between. So you just connect these 2 points. And that's where your answers are. Oh, but you can't forget, look at the signs. This one has a line underneath it. So that means negative 3 is an answer. It's closed. This one doesn't have a line. So it's going to be an open circle. And that's it. So your answers would be numbers like negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0. 1/2 is even an answer, but 1 is not an answer. Only the numbers from here to there are your answers. All right? Last one. Word problem. Okay. So as example number 4. A dog consumes between 510 calories and 540 calories a day. If the dog eats 1.5 servings of food, how many treats can the dog eat and stay within its calories? So the dog eats, this is the bowl of food, so one serving is 320, and each treat is 15 calories. So to get the concept here, the calories, I'm put cal, the calorie count has to stay in between 510 and 540. So the dog can eat 510 calories and 540. So actually I should put them equal to as well. I should put that in. They can have 510 calories. They can eat 540 calories, and they can eat between anything in the middle. Now, how do we calculate calories? Well, we have to use these things. We have to use the dog food and the treats. So we know they can have 1.5 servings. Now, 1.5 servings would be 1.5 bowls. So I would multiply that. So that would be 1.5 times 320. I'll put in parentheses. I got to multiply that. The number of treats they have? Well, we don't know. Actually, that's the question. How many treats? So I don't know how many treats that is. So that's x. So after they eat their dog food, we can add dog treats, but we don't know how many exactly to give them. But whatever you do give them, it has to stay in between 540 and 510. So again, you can treat this like two separate problems. You can ignore one side, solve for x here. You can ignore the other side and solve for x there. Or we can solve it all at once, which is what I'm going to do when the x is in the middle. So I'm going to treat it like three different sides. Actually, I should multiply this first. So I'm going to take my calculator out and multiply that. Let's see what I get. I get 480. 480 plus 15x. Okay. Of course, I should have simplified first, but I was in a rush. Okay, now inverse operations. Now we can start canceling things out. So I'm going to start with 480. I'm going to minus 480 from all sides. That's going to leave me with 30 on this side, 15x in the middle, and 60 on this side. Next step, I'm going to divide by 15, but you're going to divide all sides by 15. So this gives me 2. That cancels out, so it's just 1x. This gives me 4. So x is greater than or equal to 2, but less than or equal to 4. What does this mean? My dog can have between 2 to 4 treats a day. So they can have 2 treats, they can have 3 treats, they can have 4 treats. That's what that answer is. And that's it, guys.